With that, I would like to welcome the first of our welcome goodwill message remarks from the worshipful mayor of Haro, Councillor Nitin Parekh, to the stage. If we can all give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Yes. Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be here today, this morning. It says, moving forward, I would say, walking together, moving forward, stronger and valuable. It's great to be here, which is Commonwealth African Nation Summit, which is mainly, I would say, working for socio-economic interest of the African nations. And I wish you all the best for today and tomorrow. I hope the summit goes well. And you all get a lot of new information out of it, and I wish the summit good luck because I think there's nothing better than working together as Commonwealth nations to look after the interest of all the countries together. And we're always stronger together rather than divided, so we can look after each other's interest. And I represent London Borough of Harrow. Harrow is one of the most diverse boroughs in England, I believe, and people from all over, all the different nations, different color, different class, different culture, different religion, and of no religion, work together in Harrow. And I thought, because I represent a big chunk of African people as well in Harrow, so I thought it's important for me to come here and put my views together and give my good wishes to you all. I hope that, unfortunately, I've got another commitment, so I'll be leaving around 10 o'clock. So wish you all the best for today and tomorrow. And I'll probably see you tomorrow, most of you tomorrow evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for those remarks, sir. We will now hear from a representative speaking on the behalf of His Excellency Rami Mortada, the Ambassador of Lebanon to the UK, who could not join us, so instead he will be represented by the Councillor Francis Marwan. It's hard to think of a country whose diaspora has had a bigger impact on so many of the economies across not only West Africa, where we all know the strong impact of the Lebanese diaspora, but I've lived in Malawi, and even in Malawi, the Lebanese business community is quite strong there, and has played an important role in driving entrepreneurship across the continent, and also in building a trade relationship between the Middle East and wider Africa. So please recognize Councillor Francis Marwan.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me first to thank the organizers, the Commonwealth Africa Initiative, the co-chairs of the Commonwealth Africa Initiative, and the co-chairs of CAS 2020 for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm really honored to address such an esteemed audience, many of whom I learned have traveled from afar to be here with us this morning. Lebanon has had for many years now a very special relationship with Africa. And this relationship is nothing new. It actually goes back to ancient times when our forefathers and foremothers, I should say, left what was then the Phoenician coast to settle in North Africa. Elissa, a princess from Tyre, a city now in South Lebanon, left the homeland and founded Carthage, another great city that still exists in modern-day Tunisia. A famous Phoenician from Carthage, Hanno the navigator, in the 6th century BC, took 60 ships and sailed through the Pillars of Hercules, better known today as the Strait of Gibraltar, to explore West Africa, looking for business opportunities and trade. It is said that he reached Gabon and the Congo. Other Phoenician sailors decided to go north and traveled all the way to Cornwall, to the British Isles, looking for tin. Over the past 200 years, Lebanese have been emigrating to Africa. They left their homeland to better their lives, to trade and to do business. By some estimates, there are roughly 500,000 living in 2020 on the continent. Lebanese saw in Africa a land of opportunities and prosperity. They quickly made friendships there and business partners. They worked hard, invested, and prospered. With them, everyone around them, and the communities they lived in. They made Africa their homes. Many today are third or fourth generation Lebanese Africans. All the way from Dakar to Kinshasa, it is highly unlikely that you wouldn't meet a Lebanese. They are also very present in big cities or even the smallest towns and all across the eastern shores. Our policy at the Lebanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been over the years to actively engage with the Lebanese diaspora in general and the one in Africa in particular. Bilateral relations between governments are excellent, but it's the people-to-people relationships that are important. We have organized so far 2 regional conferences for the diaspora in Africa. We call them LDE, the Lebanese Diaspora Energy. We did the same in the Americas, in Europe, and in Australia. The first one was held in 2017 in Johannesburg, in South Africa. The second was held in Abidjan, in Côte d'Ivoire in 2018. Both were hugely successful and were designed to energize our communities, to facilitate networking, to showcase successes and discuss challenges, and for the private sector to engage, look for, and identify opportunities. These conferences, we hope, will boost cooperations and trade relations between Lebanon and Africa, and among African states themselves, between Lebanese business people and communities based in different African countries. Trading and doing business with each other, the Lebanese Cultural Union is also playing its role in that regard, and we commend them on their work. To conclude, I will add on a separate note that over our past recent history, African nations stood steadfastly with Lebanon, and Lebanon did the same. We see eye to eye on many issues, and we are certain we will continue to work together on several fronts with regards to the challenges ahead and in areas of common interest. I will take this opportunity to thank troop contributing countries serving today in South Lebanon with the United Nations peacekeeping forces. We thank the troops from Ghana, Kenya, Sierra Leone, and Tanzania for their service. I look forward over the next couple of days to listening to speakers and participants discussing how we can better work together in view of increased prosperity for all our nations. And I wish you all a very successful 7th Commonwealth Africa Summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks. Yes, all of those peacekeeping contributing nations that he mentioned from Africa to the mission, to the UN mission in Lebanon, are Commonwealth countries as well, so it's worth pointing that out. So we will have one more short welcome remark from Justina Mutale, the president of the Justina Mutale Foundation and African Woman of the Year, as recognized by the media 2012. Please give her a round of applause.
His Worship the Mayor, Honorable Charles Clark, Ms. Gail King, all dignitaries here this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and my brothers and sisters. I would like to applaud the organizers of this event, which is very timely regarding the changes that are going on in the world. Africa has always had a special relationship with the Commonwealth, but a few things are changing in the global order. I think that Brexit has done Commonwealth Africa a favor in a way, in that we have, while Europe have to some extent lost the United Kingdom, Africa in a way has gained its farther back, so to speak. I think this forum is important, that we look at some of the changing structures in the powers of the global economy, as I have just said, and to look how this, the Brexit and everything else that's going on in the world, how they are shaping the relationship, a renewed relationship between Africa and the Commonwealth, especially with the new accelerated efforts towards trade and economic relationships between Africa and the Commonwealth, and also, as the theme is here today about education, to utilize education for the potential of digital technologies so that we can establish a mutually beneficial undertakings between the Commonwealth and Africa. And when we talk about the sustainable development, we have to look at how that is important in the context of new economic partnerships between the two partners, Africa and the Commonwealth. We have to look at what determines the relationships between Africa and the Commonwealth. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities? What are the rewards? Is it a win-win situation, or is it one of master and servant once again? We look at the barriers, the experiences, and we also have to try and see how we can strengthen our new relationships so that for mutual benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks regarding the Commonwealth and Africa at this summit. We will now have two longer addresses, our two keynote speakers for our opening ceremony. We would like to recognize and please give a warm round of applause for the Right Honorable Charles Clarke, the former Home Secretary of the United Kingdom.
Thank you very much indeed for that introduction. It's an interesting concept, the Commonwealth Africa Summit, and interesting that we're here today. It's an intersection of two very important institutions, the African Union and the Commonwealth, both of which make major contributions in different ways to our lives. And I want to say a word or two about each before thinking how they can come together in a way that really can make an impact. And by the way, I was very interested to hear the welcome from the Mayor of Harrow, my former parliamentary private secretary, the Member of Parliament for one of the Harrow seats, Gareth Thomas, used to explain to me at great length the contribution which the Mayor describes of the diverse community of Harrow and the way it's changing, and is in a sense a symbol of the way in which this city is changing because of its relationships with all the Commonwealth countries, as well as with Africa in particular. So to start with the African Union. The African Union has set out a development programme to the year 2063, that's 43 years from now. A very important programme to which all the countries in the African Union are committed, really with the ambition of putting behind the many years of history, of slavery, of domination in various imperial relationships, and to establish a sense of self-confidence and positive determination of the future for the countries and peoples of Africa. It's a massive challenge, a very difficult and problematic challenge. It requires changing a set of relationships which are deep-rooted in history. As our colleague from the Lebanon described, there is a long, long history of these relationships, often positive but also sometimes negative in the way those relationships have taken forward. And Africa has said, in my opinion, rightly and courageously, we, Africa, are going to try and create a situation where we're determining our future destinies and we're ensuring that our contribution is being made on our own terms and not on anybody else's terms. What does that require? It requires massive changes in the economies of these countries, massive changes in the societies of these countries, massive changes in the international relationships of these countries. It has set out in this strategic programme to 2063 the ways in which these issues can be addressed. They have a very important action programme going through a whole series of different dimensions which they're urging the African member countries to commit to. I want to focus on two aspects of that, which are education and partnership, and I'll talk about those two in a moment. But in a sense, the fact that the African Union has said 2063 as the target date is both positive news and negative news. The negative news is 2063 is a long way away. It's 43 years away, as I say. The positive news is a deep determination to say we recognize the difficulties of the path of transition, we recognize the problems of transformation which have to be undertaken, and we're going to set ourselves on this path. We're not just going to sit back and say, we'll see what happens. The African Union is saying we are going to try and ensure that we can create our destiny in their areas. So that's the African Union approach. It's a new institution, of course, with new leadership in different ways, and it's a very important institution, but all the time struggling to ensure that it really can make an impact on the way the continent develops. On the other hand, we have the Commonwealth. I use the word Commonwealth, which used to be called the British Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a very diverse group of countries across the world. I sometimes feel it's not always been able to identify clearly what its strengths and weaknesses are. And of course, as one of the earlier contributors said, there are a series of very complicated relationships between Britain and the Commonwealth in the way that things evolve. I'm not amongst those who welcomes the Brexit decision in the United Kingdom. I don't think it was the right decision, and I don't actually think it will lead to a greater focus than would otherwise have taken place on the Commonwealth relationships. But the Commonwealth has to decide where can it be strong, where can it make a difference. And I would argue that the great strengths of the Commonwealth are firstly the shared cultural history that exists, which you see in a wide range of institutional arrangements, in a range of educational institutions and structures, in the language which is often common across Commonwealth countries, not always of course, but in many respects, and in the personal relationships which have been established between the leaderships of these very diverse group of countries. Personally, if it doesn't sound too sycophantic, I think Her Majesty the Queen takes a great deal of credit for how that has happened. She has personally committed her life to making the Commonwealth a reality and to making it a modern set of institutions rather than the old British Empire. And it does remain to be seen how, looking into the future, how well those relationships are developed. As was said in the introduction, the meeting of the heads of government, CHOGM, in Kigali later this year will be an important indicator of the way in which that operates and the way in which it goes. My own position, and I've discussed this often with successive Secretary-Generals of the Commonwealth, including Patricia Scotland at the moment, is the fact of education ought to be at the centre of the Commonwealth ambitions. Because education, with its focus on language, on democracy, on institutional arrangements, is an example where common experience, common approaches really can be developed in different ways. If I was to make a criticism, it is that the Commonwealth as a whole, its institutions, give insufficient priority to education compared to some of the other aspects of what it is doing. So as these two enormous institutional relationships come together, the African Union with the Commonwealth in this large group of countries who are Commonwealth members in Africa, so hence the Commonwealth Africa Summit, what are the issues upon which we should be focusing? I come back to education, which I think is the reason why Cambridge University, which I'm proud to work with Cambridge University Press and to be a consultant for them, has associated itself with this event, is the commitment to education and helping the Commonwealth African countries develop their own education systems. And that has to be a priority. Some people think that is just about resources. Now, there are resources aspects which are important, of course, but it's about more than resources. It's about how you educate. It's about what's in the curriculum. It's about strengthening the quality of teaching in every country. It's about making sure you have high quality teaching and learning materials for children in schools to be able to develop their own capacities in the way that they learn and they move forward. But I would argue that unless this ambitious 2063 target, the driver of the Commonwealth relationship as well, has education at its core, it will be very difficult to achieve the goals that have been set. Future economic development, innovation, entrepreneurship, future social success, strong societies, democratic governments, and so on, all depend on a well-educated, strong, self-confident society. And that really is a challenge. And it can only be solved by putting it right up there at the center of the strategic approach, which needs to be followed in all of these areas. Because at the end of the day, though the African continent, of course, and some countries in particular, have immense mineral resources and other basic products which can be of value in the system, the fundamental resource that Africa possesses is the quality of its people. And it's ensuring that the quality of its people is able to express itself in all the ways that have to be dealt with. So my first point in the summary I want to give this morning is education has to be at the center. My second point is partnership is the way to get there. Strong education, strong society, strong economic development is not developed only by governments or only by corporations or only by NGOs. Each of these has a very important contribution to make, and we can all point to great governments which have made a big difference, to great NGOs like some we're going to hear from in just a moment who've made a big difference, to great corporations which really are changing the continent in big and important ways. But the way for the impact of all of those to really take place and achieve what we're talking about is by partnership between those institutions, by finding ways in which governments can work with NGOs, can work with corporations, can work with peoples more generally. And that's a difficult ask. It's easy to have what I call note paper partnerships, where you have people at the top of a note paper. It's much more difficult to get the vibrant working together, which really is necessary in lots of different ways. And so my conclusion in this keynote which you've asked me to give today is that Africa will succeed, the Commonwealth will succeed, the Commonwealth in Africa will succeed if first it focuses on improving the quality of education at all levels, right through from birth to death. Lifelong education, preschool education, school education, university education, and so on. Focus on how you improve the quality of education in every part of the continent. And secondly, recognize that the way to make those improvements is through partnership. It's not by someone going it alone. It's by the partnership, the joint work of governments, as I say, of NGOs, of international institutions, of corporations, to say, how do we work together to improve the schooling or to improve university or whatever it may be. And that's the strategic way to go. So I wish this event success, and as I say, the two core points that I'd hope to leave you with for discussion over this event is raise the quality of education and work in partnership to achieve it. Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of the event today.